Hello, welcome to this week's episode of CXNext Live. For those of you joining for the first time, welcome. Great to have you here. For those of you that have been here through our 33 episodes this year and last, welcome back. Great to have you join us again. This is a weekly series we do focused on the world of customer experience, addressing key challenges, building a strategy, learning from real-world practitioners. I'm really excited about this week's episode. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, the world of conversational chatbots and chatbots in general. For many of you out there, you may have built your first bot. Maybe you're on bot number 3, bot number 4, or you're in the world of just kind of trying to understand how chatbots can transform your business and the way you engage with your customers. They're all excellent questions. And I think what's exciting about this week's episode is we're going to start at the foundation level. What are the 5 things you should really think about as you're either building your first bot or working on bot number 8, 9, 10, or 11? And I'm really excited about our guest. It's a fellow LogMeInner, and it's someone who really brings a wealth of experience and expertise in the world of conversational design and in building chatbots. Before I jump into that, just a couple of reminders. We record this episode, so it'll be available via LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, all your favorite social channels to share afterwards. So no need to take vigorous notes. We'll have lots of information there afterwards. We also are going to be doing a write-up of this, so we'll be doing a blog. And we'll also be doing a kind of a cheat sheet version of this that we're producing as we speak. So we'll also share that as a nice piece of takeaway that we'll share with all of you out there. Feel free to ask questions. We'll follow up on those. And obviously feel free to send us comments. If you have a perspective, you want to debate our 5 key points, feel free. But we're excited to make this something rewarding and valuable for all of you out there as you're looking to make AI and chatbot experiences something more impactful for your customers and your employees. So with all that being said, I'm really excited to invite my guest for this week, Brenda Martins. Brenda, great to have you here. Welcome.
Glad to be here, Ryan.
So to start out, I know you well, but it'd be great for you to share a little bit about your background. I think you have a really great background that, while it's unique, is also, I think, very telling in the world of conversational design. So talk a little bit about your experience and your current role here at LogMeIn.
Well, I started my conversational design career at Nuance, and I was there for 14 years building phone systems, basically the automated phone systems that talk to you, and you talk to them, and they give you answers or whatever they happen to do. And that was all just through data and teamwork and just tons of natural language and AI. It was fantastic. So, and then I came here to LogMeIn and get to transfer all that into chatbots. So that's been spectacular as well. Being able to build conversations of every kind for all kinds of purposes, all kinds of use cases. It's every day is a fun day because I just get to I made a career out of talking to people, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, totally. And I think what's also really, to me, you represent to me like the broader market in the sense if you were to rewind, those 10 or 14 years ago, the world of AI and NLP and conversational design was once again really focused on high volume, larger companies who had the time and resources to invest in, building a voice-based IVR, intelligent, virtual assistant. And what we're seeing now as this technology advances and as things like chatbots have come of age is now it becomes much more accessible where, you're delivering multiple different types of deployments for different use cases all across LogMeIn. But you could also be doing that for a very small company who, doesn't have millions of customer engagements a month, but has a volume that's, more in the 5 to 10,000, but you can still create a lot of incremental value. And so I think you've kind of naturally followed that kind of innovation curve from very large, complex deployments now into stuff that's kind of, for lack of a better term, quick and dirty, where you can see a lot of value.
Exactly.
That's great. And then so one last thing I want to touch on that I think is helpful is, and your role here at LogMeIn is to really look across all of our different use cases. So you're looking at customer acquisition, both for e-commerce, you're looking at more considered purchase, and then also even like how does that then bleed into things like customer service and support. So I think you also bring a really good breadth of experience in that you're not just focused on one narrow use case.
Yep. Our bots do a whole ton of stuff. and they
That's
can,
great.
which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's great. So let's dig into our topic for today, which is really focusing on what are our 5 key steps to creating a successful chatbot deployment coming from a master practitioner like yourself. So we'll start with step one. I love your step one. It warms my heart, and it's focusing on setting clear goals. So why is that the right first step?
Yeah. So this by far the question I get asked most often is, all right, I have this chat product. How do I build a bot? Well, what's the first step? Well, what do you want your bot to do? What is it for? Is it like there are bots out in the wild that just tell jokes? If that's all you want your bot to do, then that's what you want your bot to do. What should it accomplish? Should it just answer questions? Is it an FAQ bot? Does it qualify sales leads? If you're asking, trying to get to transfer users to a live chat so that they can, so that the live sales team can reach them and talk to them, are there any questions that I should ask in advance and have the bot automate those questions? Are you going to set demo appointments? So the trick is figure out what you want the goals to be and make them specific and finite. I want the bot to talk to people. That's not close enough. You need to have a very, very specific goal and write it down so you don't forget.
Yeah, I like that too, of like it's specific, it's measurable, and you're writing it down. So once again, I think too often people get caught up in technology for technology's sake. It's like, well, we can do this, so let's just go do it. But then if you can't measure it, you aren't clear on where you want to go, then you can't improve it. So to me, this is like so fundamental, but I think people miss it because once again, they get excited about the tech. And so I was super pumped as seeing this as your first key point.
Yeah. So setting goals, that's the number one thing.
And writing it down.
Definitely. Because, well, you're going to get to the end and your boss is going to ask you, hey, did you meet the goals? What goals? Oh, yeah, that's right. It was supposed to do this.
Exactly.
So, so writing it down. So even it's a good touch point to help you ground how you're going to design this bot. It's whatever you're building into the conversation, it should always push towards those goals.
Yes, that's great. I agree with that. That's all. It's also, to your point, it's a good North Star for all the work you do related to the project. So that's great. All right, so we've written down our goals. So now our second step is then to define our scope. So what does that mean?
Yeah, so how anybody who's worked on any kind of big design project knows if you don't scope out the project, it will become unwieldy. On everybody, like a Christmas tree, everybody starts hanging things on it. So decide on what you want your bot to know and be able to do. Like if it's going to talk about product features, make a list of all the product features you want that bot to handle. Make a list of every support question you want it to be able to answer. Make a list of every detail that you want to include in your bot. Write it down and stick to it. Otherwise, you will be in the black hole of development. The black hole. You will never, ever, ever be done with your project if you don't have a list.
Well, I like this too. So I really enjoy cooking. And to me, that's just like, anything. It's like you have to have a good recipe. And in order to make something, you got to know what you need to put into it. And I think this point is really a really good one here, where it's, if you're not clear about your scope, one, you may miss critical things that as you're halfway through, you're like, well, we don't even have this data, so the whole project's going to fall apart. Or two, you start to overreach. So, me as a cooker, I'm very simple in my recipes. Once we get over 20 ingredients, I'm like, this is too much for me. And to your point, you may start defining your scope and you're like, well, we want, going back to our goal, this bot has to do 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 different things. Scope wise, that's going to take us 6 months. Is that worth the investment? And so exactly. I like that you're providing that clarity up front, so you're not either A, setting yourself for failure, or B, you're lining it up with the expectations for the rest of the business. So I think those are 2 great ways to start.
The other thing that you have there is you try to base your scope on data. You'll get people on your team saying, how come the bot doesn't do this? The bot should do this. The bot should do that. If try to include only the topics that you're expecting users to actually ask about in the bot. Otherwise, you're just wasting time and energy building stuff that nobody's going to use.
Yeah, that's one thing I think is spot on. Yeah, I agree. Because
Yeah,
at the end of the day,
at all, that's useful.
yeah, that's great. And I think because at the end of the day, this is about, it's about automation, it's about efficiency. And to your point, it's like you may spend all this time and effort and you're going to get a really low engagement volume, and then you're not going to see the ROI. And also you may be missing something that is a high runner because you're spending all this time building it versus getting it out into the field and learning. So I think that's also, taking a data-driven approach is definitely a sound advice.
Yeah, that's our watchword on our team is data-driven. That's where we live and die by our data.
That's great. Okay, so this is good. So we've talked about our goals and we talked about our scope. So we're clear about where we want to go. We're clear about kind of what are the main pieces we need to get there. So then the third thing, and this I think is often missed, and it's really kind of it's sad that it's missed, is about giving your bot a personality. So kind of giving it a persona, defining who you want it to be as part of your, and you think about how much time we spend on our websites and our collateral. So I love this one. Talk about that a little bit more and what companies should think about as they're giving their bot a personality.
Yeah, so this is where I get to work really closely with the marketing department, the people who are deciding what they want the brand look and feel to be, and how. So you have to pick, who do you want this bot to be? That you can make this bot kind of pretend it's a person. Who is the person that you're going to emulate in this bot? And pick not an actual person necessarily, but like if you want it, if it's doing support, is it like, I think one of our bots, we wanted it to have the feel of your secret superhero.
Yes.
So we gave it a name. His name is Clark, because he's your secret superhero. He's gonna help you through stuff. One is like a kind of a geek squad kind of a guy. It's the guy that knows everything about computers, that can answer all your questions, and he knows you don't know, so he'll talk to you on not on a super high level, but to, keep you grounded in what you need to know. Or do you want it to be the best SDR in the world, the best sales, the first tier salesperson in the world? If you could build that person and put words in their mouth so that they could answer the phone, answer your chats 24/7 in exactly the same way every single time, the most amazing receptionist in the world, who do you want it to be? Write it down. Your marketing team will be able to help you with descriptors, like the top, pick 3 to 5. Like, do you want your bot to be funny or silly or smart or serious? I like cheeky. It's
totally.
Not really funny, but they'll say a little something that's a little, oh, that's kind of okay, gotcha. Do you want kind, professional? So you can't be all things to all people. So get a short list of descriptors of what the brand should feel like and make that person like that. Pick an icon. Pick, like, is it a robot? Is it a person? Is it a cartoon character? There's a lot of schools of thought on this of, like, do you use a real picture? Because then people think it's a real person, and it might not be. And pick what you like. Pick what goes with the brand, what fits with the brand. And I do none of a lot of that icon stuff. I don't do it myself. I go off to the marketing team and I say, hey, what do you like? What do you have a picture for me that you want to use for the icon? Things like that. What colors, what fonts, all of that. All the brand team does all that, and they just give it all to me, and I put it in the box.
Yeah, and I really I like a lot about this too, because one thing, it's giving it goes down this continued road of like the goals and the scope. It's providing clarity of direction, and that clarity of direction, one, allows you to learn. So going back to your point, like, do we want to make it a symbol, or do we want to make it a robot, or do we want to make it look more like a person? We can A/B test those things to say what, and it may vary by where it is on the site. So maybe on the support page, it looks a little bit more like, an icon, or when it's on a more of a sales posting page, it looks more like a person. And I
Sure.
think those are great ways for you to test and learn. And I think it also then helps as you're scaling and growing, whether it's your team or who's involved, to then provide that consistency. So everybody's clear as to what this thing is, how it talks, just like how you do sales training, or your marketing teams have brand guidelines. I think it's so important that what you're mentioning here, because I think it often gets missed. Because once again, people see it as technology, it's like set it and forget it, but you really miss that kind of personal touch.
Yep. And also, I also include in my persona documents, say this, not that. So
that's great.
There's things like, it's not a product, it's a solution.
Yes.
Like, so that you'll hear some of the marketing folks say stuff like that. So word choice, anything that the brand requires for wording, how they capitalize things, how they is like, if you have a two-word product, is the second word capitalized? Are they concatenated?
Yes.
How does that?
Yes.
What does that look like on paper?
Yes.
Making sure that that's correct. That all goes into this persona document. Do they say "I'm sorry" a lot? Personally,
yeah,
I don't like.
One.
I don't like a lot of "I'm sorry." Oh, it's my mistake. The other thing is, like, are you going to use emojis? Is this the kind of brand that, like, I'm going to sell this product and the smallest deal size is $5,000 and I'm going to put smiley faces in the bot? Probably not. So, using how much slang, how emojis, colloquial language. You also have to keep in mind as you're doing that, is this going to get translated into another language? Because if your bot gets translated into Spanish, Portuguese, French, Russian, whatever, slang doesn't necessarily translate well on an automatic translator. Colloquial language doesn't translate necessarily well. So you're going to have to keep that in mind as you're deciding on how the persona wording should be.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And also when and where you try to insert more of the brand experience. So, like, just to your point around, if the bot, let's say, doesn't understand a question or doesn't know an intent, or if it missed something, when are the points where you want to kind of be a little more playful, and once again insert your brand, versus when do you want to be kind of more straight down the line? And I think those are all great points. I think another thing too is, I'm not a huge fan of doing a lot of these, but some people like to do like little Easter eggs, or things where you can ask the bot something and it's a little fun. And so once again, it's like a point to have a little levity, but you also be careful with those, because you don't want to. You're trying to, at the end of the day, drive someone down a journey, but you can have a little fun with those as well.
Yeah, and if somebody's off journey, you can say something a little cheeky and then pull them back into the conversation.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. I agree. It's a great opportunity. So those are all great. I think those are all great examples of how you can think about giving your bot a personality and really kind of aligning with your brand and delivering that consistency, but also making it more fun and engaging for the end user, which at the end of the day is really the goal. You want to have them continue the conversation.
The other thing is, I keep saying, write it down. What if I design a bot persona and I don't write it down and then I get laid off?
Yeah. Totally.
That bot, who's going to rate the bot? And it's going to sound like two different people. It's going to sound like a multi-personality bot. So if I have that persona document, say this, not that, using these words, this language, this kind of phrasing, the next person who comes in to work on the bot knows how to build the bot, how to write the bot in such a way that it's consistent with what's already there.
Totally. And I like to say that you won the lottery, or you got a promotion, and then we have to figure it out. But I hear your point. So for those of you that just joined, just do a quick station check here. This is CXNext Live. It's a weekly series we do focused on the world of customer experience. For those of you that just joined, we're having a great conversation around the 5 key steps to building a great chatbot experience. Joining me is Brenda Martins. Brenda works here with me at LogMeIn, and she focuses on building all of our great conversational experiences for our chatbots across all of our different products. So from GoToMeeting to GoToWebinar to Bold 360. She works on e-commerce applications through considered purchase, all the way down into focusing on things like customer service. She spent many years at Nuance doing a lot of really great, rich conversational design work and brought all that experience, fortunately, to us here to LogMeIn. And we're taking all that great kind of ninja expertise in the world of chatbots and packaging it up into 5 easy steps for all of you out there. We talked through the first 3 steps, focusing on setting clear goals, defining your scope, and giving your bot a personality. We just talked about that. So now we're going to talk about the final 2 steps. And I think this next one's critically important as well, and oftentimes gets missed, but it's planning out the conversation. So tell me more about what that means to you and why that's important as you're really starting to kind of roll up your sleeves to do this work.
Yeah. So how does a human user answer a question? What are they going to ask? You know, what would a human ask you first? And what would they ask as a follow-up question? What comes next? For every topic in your scope, and you wrote it down so you can go through your line items on your scope. It's supposed to be able to answer questions about price. Okay, well, what's the human user if I was a human answering that question, what would that conversation look like? Oh, well, to get you that price, well, I need to know how many blah, blah, blahs you need. And, and I also need to know what you're going to be using it for because there's an add-on or whatever. So you ask some follow-up questions. So you start planning out these conversations and you write them down. When I'm trying to get through some complicated questions and complicated details, and I'm trying out different wording, and I'm guessing at what people are going to respond to at each stage, I'll refine the wording of the questions during this phase in planning the conversation. And writing them end to end from beginning to end. Hey, welcome to the site. You know, I'm chatbot, and I can answer questions about the product or whatever you're going to do. How are you going to start it? What's the first question? Sketch it out. You can use Flow. You can use Visio if you want. That'll work fine. One really useful source is if you do have live chat already, or you have some way to look at a log of how a human being actually chats with your customers, or you could talk to the salespeople. If you've got anything that has that already in writing, you can see the kinds of questions people ask and how the flows go and what follow-up questions they ask and what like, for example, I've been reading some lately, and they say, you know, what's your first and last name, your email address, your phone number, your role at your company, the size of your company, when are you looking to buy? I wouldn't want to answer all those questions until I got my own questions answered, but we'll answer them all. And okay, well, then I'll let the bot ask those questions. So, I never thought in a million years that regular people would answer those questions without hesitation, and they do.
Well, I like this too because it's about providing cloud. It goes back to your original two. One thing I like about these, they all kind of build on each other, but it goes back to your point around like goals and scoping. It's like if you're not clear as to where you want the user to go, then how are you ever going to get them there? And so it's you know, it's as simple as, hey, I use my Google navigation to get from here to wherever I want to go, and the route may change. So there may be places where someone wants to go left versus right, but at the end of the day, it's still you as the brand, as the conversational designer and the person making the experience, want to get people to a few destinations. You want to be clear on that, or why do the work. You know, if it's just a wander in the woods, your time is probably better spent elsewhere. Yeah. So I think it's so great of saying, all right, well, here's a few different paths we think they could take. And I like your idea of let's look at chat logs, or let's look at our website, or, you know, where are we seeing volume? And then let's focus on those outcomes. But if you're not clear about that journey, then at the end of the day, it's like, you know, it's a lot of work for probably not much outcome.
Yeah, and one of the things that I found super useful, like I had a website that has 4 products on it, and they're very different products, and the bot handles that website, so they has to be able to answer questions about all 4 of these products. Well, which one do I need? I don't know. Help me decide. Well, how do I help somebody decide which product is right for them? So I grabbed a couple salespeople and I sat them down in a go-to meeting and I quizzed them. How do I get somebody to what questions do you ask and in what order to get to know which product somebody needs? And
That's great.
and that and that flow, basically the transcript of that conversation lives in our bot today.
And I love that. I mean, at the end of the day, and this is something that's really important is we have a lot of people who are great experts and they're oftentimes spending their expertise on lower value things. It's like to your point, it's like, well, I'm just trying to figure something out. There's a high volume around it, but it isn't necessarily where we want our valuable resources spending time. But usually that information lives in someone's head or to your point, lives in a chat log or lives on an FAQ page. And so it's about the chatbot is really about making it more accessible and making it so it can do more of those things in an easy way. And so I love taking those real world examples of let's use our internal expertise we have today to help us, chart that. It's like one, I love analogies, but it's like you go to the person that's climbed the mountain before and you're like, what path did you take? Did you mark some trees? And then our job is to pave it. So, it's not just one person that can do it, but we can do it for anybody that shows up.
Yep. And
that's great.
So, and the other thing you have here, though, to be a little pitfall that you might have to navigate around, the salespeople sometimes think that you're building a bot to replace them. And I try to explain to them, no, I'm trying to build an automated way to answer the stupid questions so you don't have to. And I'll get those out of the way. Yes. And then like all the low hanging fruit, the easy questions to answer in a bot, I'll get that done in an automated way, and then I'll transfer them to you so they don't have to ask you that question. So it's like a partially qualified lead or a fully qualified, depending on how much you want the bot to actually automate. And
yeah, totally.
You get more better leads that go to the live people. Is that all right? Do you mind if I do that? And they're on it.
Well, and it's the same thing around like customer service. It's like no one wants to pick up the phone and answer the same 10 questions over and over again all day long. We want to take that work and hand it off to self-service so you can spend time on the more challenging, more interesting. You can also not have to worry about things like average handle time because you now are freed to spend more time with folks to address those more important and more critical things. Right. So yeah, I think that those are great points that should be considered as you're kind of doing that scoping and defining the project. So I'm glad you brought up that point.
And those are the 4 steps that nobody thinks to do. They always want to start on step 5. I want to build a bot.
Yes, I totally agree. And so I'm glad we're now on step 5 because I agree. People are just like, let's go, let's just do. And so, but I think you have an important point on step 5, which is also because I think people hear those things and they're like, oh, that sounds daunting. And I just want to get it out there. And I think it doesn't have to be. I think there's a couple of things that when you talk about kind of build and learn and do it early and often. So talk about kind of from all right, so now we've done all those 4 steps. Now, what are some of the key insights about actually, doing the building? And what are some things you've learned in all the deployments you've done?
I think of it a lot in pieces. I think, this would be a good piece of a flow. And as I've planned that, like I have a plan, like a pricing piece, and then people have questions about the free trial, and then people have questions about this other, like they want to know about security. And so I have like, little pieces of flows that I build individually as I've planned out the conversations. I've done that planning, the whiteboarding. But instead of doing an end-to-end build, I'll do like a module that handles one of those things. So the one thing on the scope list, I'll build just that piece. And then I'll start connecting them in different ways.
Yes, I like that a lot. It's like taking it as a, because one, you may start piecing that together and then you say, hey, actually, 3 of these 10 modules are really valuable, and let's focus on those first and let's just get those up and learn. Or you may say, hey, we did the first 3 modules, we learned something, and now we want to kind of reassess the overall experience. And so
Yep.
I think by doing that kind of iterative break into pieces approach, it makes it, one, less daunting, and two, you can start to garnish insights faster or earlier.
Yep. And you get reusable pieces. So you'll get a reusable section of bot
Yes.
that you can just keep pointing to whenever you need to as people are asking for it. Or you might want to put it on a menu somewhere and link to it. Or you just start putting it together at that point. And you just start linking them up. And eventually you see your end-to-end conversation that you had built in step 4. Now you can say, oh, I want to go from here to here to here. We were talking about getting live questions, order of questions from some kind of live source, a live chat or whatever.
Yes.
So I built a thing about trials, and then we found out there's a lot of people who ask, what happens when my trial ends? Like, do I still get to keep the software? Does it stop me from what does it do? What does it do
Yes.
when the trial ends? And so, oh boy, I tell them about the trial, and then the trial's 14 days, and you can sign up with no credit card needed. Do you want to know what happens when your trial ends?
Yes.
And
exactly.
that question is the next one in order. It automatically goes there because I know you're going to ask that question, because in every live chat I read that was the next question. So you get a sense of, if somebody just asks out of the blue, what happens when my trial ends? They'll go straight there. You don't have to tell them all about the trial stuff. You can just answer the one piece of question that they wanted to hear.
Well, and I like that too, because you're capturing things that may bubble up much later or may become barriers later, and you're addressing those earlier. So even things like, because I know there's always questions around pricing or about service or about contracts. And, a lot of times it's, one, humans may not think of those things. I mean, you can give them lots of input, but, there's only so much that we kind of manage in our workflows. But two, you may bubbles up earlier, so either you can disqualify people out, or you can address their concerns sooner, so they go buy faster or they solve their problem quicker. So I think that those are really great insights that can come out of this that you wouldn't get if you weren't kind of going through those journeys and learning from them.
Precisely. And then once you get this out into the world, launch it. And it's not going to be perfect. No bot is, because that's where you have this scope document that you limited the scope. So there are going to be things that the bot can't do because you left them out of the scope purposefully.
Yes.
You look at this live data and you see people are asking about this thing. We didn't even think about that. Your next round of the bot, the next iteration, the data says, add this new skill, add this new information. Oh, this answer, they keep asking the same question after this answer. Let's add, maybe that answer isn't good enough. Maybe I can add another question after that talks them through a little bit more of it to, clarify or whatever. Your data, live and die by your data. Your data will tell you what you need to do.
That's
get
great.
A usability test.
Yes, and that's the other things I'm going to bring up. I was going to say, so things like that. I know you had talked to me, so usability tests and things like peer reviews. I'm interested in hearing more about those as well.
Oh, those are fun. Internally here at LogMeIn, we put it on a review site. That's a kind of a clone of the real page, but it lives only on our internal side, so regular people can't screw around with it. Yes. But we put the bot there, and then we can invite people internally to play with the bot. And they can say, oh, you did the branding wrong here, or that shouldn't be capitalized. Oh, you don't need that comma. Oh, this feels a little wordy to me. Oh, this answer is a little confusing. I'm not sure how to answer this question. This word wasn't recognized. This intent wasn't recognized, and it's in scope. Like whatever. People will fill in all the blanks for you and do a little bit of QA. on this bot.
Yes.
And it's your peers. It's the other people who are building bots, people who are doing conversation. It's people who are like a lot of like the development team. They've done bots before. They know a little bit about the design process. So they know what they're looking for as far as conversation goes, and you get all the feedback you can, and you make improvements, and you get more feedback, and you make more improvements, and you get more feedback, and you make more improvements. It's just this continuous improvement cycle that will make your bot better and better and better incrementally.
Yeah, that's great. And I think what also is really critical there is like once again, sometimes you just don't know, you don't see something until it's put into action. And so to your point, there's great things about usability tests and peer review, things that can help you catch those gotchas. And I think they can be gotchas because, humans having a conversation, they have, more context, they're more flexible. Obviously they're not pulling from a script per se. And so they can adapt a bit more. And so sometimes when you first build this out, you have a good sense of, it should work fine for, maybe multiple languages, or it should work fine for, usability needs, or, hey, we're going to use emojis and that should work fine. But then to your point, as you start running it through its paces, at the end of the day, the volume drives out where the errors exist. Just like with traffic in a city, those places where there's bad roads with potholes, you start to get congestion. And so kind of putting it through its paces will prove that out. And I think that's really great advice for folks, especially if they haven't done this before and they're worried about the customer experience and they're worried about the quality of it. You can do a lot of these internal tests that can really help to address those problems.
Yeah, I mean, a usability test, if you can see a live person interacting with the thing that you've built on any level. I did a usability test back in the day on a phone system. And when you hear, thank you for calling Company A, para español, marque 9.
Yes.
How long do you sit and wait after that 9 to wait for somebody to press 9 to change over to Spanish? How long do you wait before you move on?
2 seconds?
It turns out during the usability test, para español, marque 9. And they would move. They would take a breath. They would shift their weight. They would do something. And it turned out to be exactly the same amount of time for everybody in the usability test.
Really?
Really. Because we had our hold time set too long. So we shortened it to like a quarter of a second less than the time it took them to move.
So people didn't get that little itch to be like, what, are you still there?
Exactly. So it's human computer interaction. It's the way humans behave with computers, which is predictable. It's very predictable. So
totally, that's great.
So you can use the usability test to predict what behavior, look at the behavior and see how people are interacting with your device and go from there. And you see stuff. You see, people don't like that it scrolls too fast, or people don't like that it's too wordy and they're trying to read it out loud, and whatever. They do all kinds of strange things that you never ever in a million years expected them to do.
That's great.
And, usability gives you some great feedback. But just this continuous improvement cycle. And then you do this whole thing all over again. Once you get a stack of things that you want to improve, are your goals still the same? So go check your goals and see if you still have to do the same thing. Define your scope again. When you're going to redo this bot and add new stuff to it, are you going to do a lot of stuff all at the same time? Are you going to do it individually? Is the persona still the same? Sometimes, like I know we have a product that's going to be going through a rebranding, I think, at some point. I can't call it the same thing in the chatbot anymore, so I have to make sure that I'm making sure that the persona matches the new branding on that product, or the updated branding. So, it's worth it to check in and just make sure that it's still the same. Plan out your new conversations and test and test and test.
Great.
And keep doing it over again until your bot is as perfect as you ever care for it to be.
Well, this is great. And so for those of you that joined partway through, this is CXNext Live. It's a weekly show we do focus on the world of customer experience. This week we focused on the key 5 steps to building your own chatbot. Brenda's joined me, and she's a wonderful wealth of experience on building conversational experiences as a conversational designer. She's built numerous bots, both outside of LogMeIn and here now at LogMeIn across all of our great brands of products. We just walked through the 5 key steps. So setting clear goals, defining your scope, giving your bot a personality, planning out your conversation, and then finally building and learning through that process. And she just walked us through a great recap of once you've done it, you'll do it again and again. Brenda, I want to thank you so much for the time today. I love this. As I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, we're going to we'll do a blog on this topic to kind of synthesize it. We'll also probably build a nice little cheat sheet for folks that takes this and summarizes it into a kind of a 2-page asset. We probably also, you and I could maybe do a podcast as well. But I know this has been really great for me. It's always wonderful working with you, both on our internal projects and just learning from your experience. So I want to thank you so much for joining.
It's my pleasure. Thanks.
And so for all of you out there, once again, please feel free to shoot us questions, comments. We'd love to get your perspective. We also would love to help you on your journey in building better customer experiences, whether that's through a chatbot, through visual engagement, or even the world of technical support. But we're here to help. Brenda obviously brings a great perspective, so we've learned from her today. But feel free to shoot us questions or comments about where you're challenged and what you're dealing with in your customer experience journey. Brenda, thank you again for joining, and I want to thank all of you out there for joining. Please stay well, send us questions and comments, and looking forward to helping you on your continued journey to customer experience success. Thanks so much, and take care.